Welcome to the Storage Stories podcast, where Denee Burns and Jason Koonin tackle self-storage news, trends, education, and share their expert experience in both the U.S. and Canadian markets. This podcast is for rookies and seasoned veterans alike, as we all try to grow our businesses and leave our mark on the self-storage industry.
Hi everyone, welcome to Storage Stories, episode 5. So we have a very important topic today that we want to chat about, and that is social responsibility. And that's very much a high value at Sunbird Storage. So I'm Denee Burns, the Chief of Staff of Sunbird Storage in the US, and also Bluebird Self Storage in Canada. And we have some very important guests today. So I'm with our CEO, Jason Koonin, and he will be speaking in a moment about social responsibility, and we'll be answering some questions. We also have Marc Hull-Jacquin from Shelter Movers. He is the CEO of Shelter Movers, and we also have Macaluso from Charity Storage, and also the best self-storage insurance. So Mario is with Charity Storage, as I mentioned, and he is a board member, longtime industry veteran, very much beloved in our industry. He is a program manager for Charity Storage, and he works to educate and inform our industry and others about the benefits of partnering with Charity Storage to help out in the community. So self-storage, we really believe in investing in the communities that you serve. And so with Charity Storage, you can do that. He also brings a passion for philanthropy and an intimate understanding of the self-storage industry. Also, quick to note, I'm an ambassador for Charity Storage. I have been for years. Very much love it. So, and all that they're doing. So he will go into more information or more about that in a few moments. Marc Hull-Jacquin from Shelter Movers. He is a passionate social justice leader. Marc founded Shelter Movers while on leave with his daughter in 2016. He was struck by the dangers involved of leaving an abuser for victims of domestic violence, and he developed an innovative moving service to help victims escape to safety and flee abuse. And we also partner with Shelter Movers in Canada. Bluebird Self Storage does, and we offer free units for those who need to store their items. So we're very much involved with this nonprofit, very honored to do so. So Shelter Movers is the only service of its kind in Canada. Shelter Movers fills a critical gap in the country's social safety net, removing thousands of survivors and children, moving them to safety. The organization is currently powered by 1,000 volunteers in 9 major cities. And I know they've had a lot of recent updates, so I'll let Marc expound upon that. Excited to hear from him. Prior to Shelter Movers, Marc spent 15 years in policy development and government relations. So Marc is the recipient of the Canadian Meritorious Service Medal. Wow, that's so impressive. Well done, Marc. And he gives his time to several boards. He holds a master's degree in anthropology. He lives in Toronto, Canada with his wife, Megan, and their 3 lively children. I like how you put that. So, and also Jason Koonin is the CEO of Sunbird Storage in the US, also Bluebird Self Storage in Canada, which is growing, has many new developments. And Jason is also on the advisory board for Shelter Movers and very passionate about social justice and social responsibility. So every community that Sunbird or Bluebird has a self-storage facility in, we partner with the nonprofits in that area to help people in the community. We're all about building and growing stronger communities. So that's very much, like I said, a high value for us. So I'm going to start off asking some questions. So gentlemen, thank you for your time today. We're so happy to have you on Storage Stories, episode number 5. So let's say, Mario, I'm going to put you in the hot seat. So how did you get started and connected with Charity Storage? And after you answer that, if you could expound a little bit upon Charity Storage. I know that you do a lot of good. So tell us about Charity Storage and how you got involved with it.
Sure. I appreciate it, Denee, and thank you for hosting this event. So I actually met Barry Hoven, one of the co-founders of Charity Storage, about 14 years ago. He was at a self storage association meeting in Phoenix, Arizona, and they were just raising some money for charity storage at that time. I ended up just donating a simple iPad, and in order to raise money. And when they had the auction and the raffle and all that, I ended up winning that iPad back, and then I donated it back, and I actually won the iPad several times, and I said there's obviously a connection here. And then fast forward all these years later, when COVID hit, um, obviously trade shows kind of shut down and the world kind of shut down. There was a lot of uncertainty. I ended up joining the board for Charity Storage just prior to COVID, and then joined as a program manager to promote charity storage. So it was something that meeting Barry, meeting Lance, and other board members, I really understood the need to educate self-storage operators. And with my contacts in the industry, I thought it'd be a natural fit to help out. So that's really how it evolved. I mean, there was blessings with COVID, right? The world was in flux, and here it created this huge opportunity for us to give back.
That's really powerful. And I appreciate how you've taken Barry's legacy. I know that he has passed away, but he obviously had a heart of gold. And I appreciate how you're taking his legacy and making it flourish and expounding upon it. So tell us a little bit about charity storage. So exactly is it? What does it do? What does it raise money for? How do operators engage with it?
Sure. A great question, Denise. So charity storage was is a nonprofit that really is specific to the self-storage industry. So it gives self-storage operators the opportunity to dedicate a vacant unit at their facility. And as tenants move in and as tenants move out, managers just let the tenants know that rather than taking their unwanted contents to Goodwill, they can actually just place them in that vacant unit. The manager or the owner will host that as a charity unit, and then the proceeds will actually go to a charity of their choice. And in an effort to honor Barry's legacy, he wanted a percentage of that revenue that's generated from that auction, not only just to go to the charity that the manager or the owner has dedicated as the beneficiary, but also to the scholarship fund for the self-storage for the self-storage industry, so that other employees or their children, anyone that's involved in the self-storage industry could have their children apply for an educational scholarship. So he was a big believer in promoting education. And then in addition, Barry he passed away from kidney cancer. And so we have a small percentage of the proceeds from each auction go to cure cancer research. But so it's really engaging. And what I love about this platform is Marc and Jason and yourself, we got a chance to meet. And obviously, we're educating operators on shelter movers. It's a great way for them to look at shelter movers. And if they have a passion for what Marc is doing, and obviously his story, he can tell it a lot better than I can, but we want to educate operators on all the good that his organization is doing and help raise money through the charity storage platform as well.
Absolutely. Great. I love what you're doing with charity storage. And thank you for expounding upon that. So, Marc, I'm going to put you in the hot seat for a moment. So tell us a little bit about shelter movers. Now, I understand right now it's in Canada only. But tell us a little bit about the program and what you do. I'm sure you could explain it a lot better than I did. So, and recently you had some new updates and a gala. So tell us about that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Great to see all three of you, and thanks to your listeners for taking interest in this. So I as you said, I'm the founder of Shelter Movers. Started this about 8 years ago. Shelter Movers is a, as you mentioned, a national volunteer-powered charity that provides moving and storage services at no cost to individuals and families fleeing abuse. We mainly serve women with small children or women who are pregnant. We know that in the 6 months after a woman or survivor attempts to leave the partner, they're at a very, very high risk of violence, including femicide, including being murdered. So it's a very serious problem in Canada and in the US. Here in Canada, a woman or girl is killed every 2 days, usually at the hands of an intimate partner or family member. So I'm sitting with my daughter in 2016. And in learning this information, I didn't know anything about this issue really myself, but to hear that were the stats in Canada and probably pretty similar, if not maybe even a little bit more severe in parts of the U.S., I thought I had to be useful and do something. And so, what if we could help women leave at that critical moment safely and in dignity with their belongings, give them a place to go that's safe, and then get them to a safe place and then have their items stored safely for them while they're in shelter, while they're basically in hiding or trying to get their life back on track. So this idea of a free moving service took shape, and I started testing the idea over and over again. My wife would take care of our kids. I'd jump in a van and go out after work with a name and show up at someone's house with some volunteers and ask her if she's ready to go. And so over the last 8 years, the organization has grown pretty significantly. We're moving about 160 families a month now. We did 165 in September, which is our all-time high, sadly. And we do operate in multiple cities across the country. So we're about to open our 10th chapter in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in about a week. I'll be there for the launch of that, and we have begun moving families in Manitoba. So the idea, the vision is, because we're the only service of this kind, is that Shelter Movers needs to offer its free moving service wherever survivors need us. And so that means we need to grow and grow fast. If we're going to take the problem seriously, we need to be in a lot of different communities. That includes the US. So we can probably get to that in a little bit in our chat. But I think the need for our service is obvious in the US, and we're not aware of any service like this operating quite the way we do. We work closely with police services, private security. We obviously partner very closely with the storage industry, specifically Bluebird in Canada, our primary, our largest donor, but also many of their competitors. And I want to speak to that because it really is an example of the sector coming together around an issue that's bigger than all of us and kind of transcends business and transcends. This is personal. These are young women and women of all ages in our community who are experiencing abuse, and it's a chance for the industry to show where it stands on this. And we've been really encouraged to see so many different large storage operators and smaller operators make their space available to us on a donated basis, usually within the margin of units that were already sort of left vacant anyway. If they're operating at whatever 94%. Then usually it's not a huge demand for the storage facility to make a unit or two available. Obviously, Bluebird's operating on a different level because your offices have made so many units available to us in multiple cities and are kind of leading the way, which we always appreciate. So we work with police, we work with private security. We use unmarked vehicles, usually rented or donated by local vehicle rental facilities. And we recruit volunteers, over 1,000 volunteers now in multiple cities. And these are people from all walks of life who either want to be on the ground supporting survivors, in the move, or they're in the background. So they might be coordinating the move remotely, or they might be doing marketing for us or helping us with our finances. We have a small staff. We have about 70 people across the country in those 10 cities. And they're managing about 1,000, 1,100 active volunteers in across the country. So the vision really, I think, is to be on a growth trajectory in the US and in Canada that allows us to open as often and as frequently as we can and move as many families as possible.
That's great. So, well done. I was just thinking, all through growing up, my parents were very much about a servant heart, servant attitude, always giving to nonprofits and donating. And I thought, while you were speaking, well done. I just applaud you for what you're modeling to your children. And so they're going to grow up with that same sort of attitude and being very other centered and thinking about how they can serve their communities and the people around them. So yeah, just so proud of you. Thank you for that. So now tell us, how did you get connected with Jason Koonin?
Yeah, I mean, so we were connected through a mutual connection, if I'm not mistaken. But really, I think the more interesting story is how the friendship and how the relationship has grown. If I can talk about that, I mean, I get the privilege to work with all kinds of different storage companies across Canada, but and many are very, very generous. But I've just noticed in how your office is operating just seems to be different. It just seems to, I think a lot of storage businesses would benefit from understanding that serving your community, especially, we know that business is being driven in that small circle around a few miles, a few kilometers around the buildings. That you're part of the community, and there are not always positive stories that come out of some people's storage experience, and I think that's a shame because the storage industry is so well positioned, literally positioned geographically, to be a real anchor for the community and to put out positivity in the community and be known as a welcomed member of the community. And I could tell when I was speaking with you, Jason, early on, how that was so obvious to you when it's not obvious to a lot of other folks, and they have to sort of be convinced about why helping the community is beneficial. And we see the benefit not only for the people in the community, we see the benefit for staff. We see employees who have gone to volunteer for shelter movers, and they come back on Monday morning to the building and say, you know what, we volunteered for this group and we did this move together and it was amazing and we got to know each other better. And they come back happier, they feel fulfilled, they're proud of their employer that they encourage them to do that. And again, it sort of runs past business and transactions. It's something bigger than that, and it's adding real value and literally saving people's lives in the community. So I think it's not understated to say that the storage industry has an amazing opportunity to be a real force for good and to be known for positive outcomes in the community. And Bluebird and others are kind of leading the way with that, which we appreciate. And then the second thing, if I can, is just to talk about the role of men. I mean, we're three white guys here on this call and a white woman. You know, we're very privileged. I think we're all quite privileged in terms of the life that we have. And you're mentioning my example to my kids. I think the storage industry is in a very favorable position generally compared to lots of other industries, and therefore I believe has a bit of a responsibility to use that privilege to benefit others. That's how I feel about it personally. Business is usually is pretty good, I think, across the sector, and that to me really should mean that it's radiating positivity for the surrounding areas as well. So it's not only good for business, but I think it's the right, morally, ethically, from a business perspective, it's the right thing to do. That when the storage industry wins, the community wins. And so it's not only good for staff or good for the community. I think it's just good for the business community in general to model this kind of behavior. And an organization like Shelter Movers makes that pretty easy because we control access to the units. Our clients never go in to get their own stuff on their own. They may not even know where their stuff is being held unless they ask us. For security reasons, we keep that relatively confidential. But we're in and out, on a regular basis, moving families all the time, and we know that we need to make this as easy and as convenient as possible for our storage partners, so that they can make as much storage available to us. So it should be win-win.
Yeah, great answer. And I think that's interesting how you point out, like, we are very blessed. I would say, though, just the caveat, I work with a lot of nonprofits, and some of them think, or people tend to think, that only the rich people, those who are wealthy, need to contribute or do something. And I just say, no, that's not true, because my parents, like, we grew up very poor in Kansas, but we were still able to give time, and we were still able to go and help out a neighbor and pull some weeds for somebody who's disabled, or, bring a small meal or what have you. So I think giving back to our community, serving our communities, is something that anyone can do. There's just different levels of responsibility, especially if you're given more, then you do more. So it's sort of like the 10% tithe, right? So if you only earn $1, you could give 10 cents. If you earn $1,000, you could give 100, what have you. So now I'm going to switch over to Jason, put him in the hot seat. So Jason, why shelter movers? There's so many nonprofits out there, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. But how did you get connected with shelter movers, Marc, and why did you choose to support this this nonprofit?
Yeah, thanks, Denee. I think there are a number of great charitable organizations, as you suggested. And as I learned more about shelter movers and charity storage, in all these cases, the more you learn, kind of the more you want to get involved, the more you want to give. So for me, I was pretty new to the storage industry when I first got introduced to Marc. I'd only been in storage for a year or so. This was over 3 years ago. And just the more I learned about the needs that they had for storage space for their survivors and for their clients, it was just a natural fit. I think the same would be true of Mario's organization. Every storage facility I've seen has vacant units. The challenge is, really one of leadership. If you have good leaders at the company, whether it's a small company or a large company, that believe in investing in their community, and I'm not going to judge how they invest. They may have other organizations they give to, but now is a really good time to be rethinking, your marketing strategy. And demand for storage has declined in a lot of markets this year. So rental activity is down a bit. Occupancy in some markets is down. So you've got more units than you had during the pandemic. The question is, can you put them to good use? I mean, can you donate them to organizations that make an impact in your community, thereby raising the visibility of your storage facility? You've got units you can't fill at a good price right now. So I think now more than ever, there's vacancy. And some people we're not going to convince. I think if you need too much convincing, you're probably not going to invest in your community, and that's fine. But for a lot of others, it's part of the education that Mario talked about. We need to educate and inform operators of how easy it is to get involved. I mean, to help shelter movers, you simply need to contact them and let them know in what markets you have space, and they can pretty much, handle the rest. In the case of Mario, we're able to raise money and auction donated items just by making a unit available. So, as I've said many times, if your facility is 100% occupied, then your rates are too low. Raise your prices, 20, 30%, and you'll make a lot more money and free up some units. So, for me, it was just a natural fit. At first I was a little, I wouldn't say skeptical, but, not really knowing, you get approached by a lot of nonprofits. But as I learned more, it very quickly became apparent that this was something that I could help with, and I felt a duty to help. And I don't really know how I couldn't help. I mean, we have, as Marc said, we're blessed with a lot of resources as a storage operator, and in the real estate sector, we there's one thing that we have, which is space. So it's a natural fit for organizations like shelter movers and charity storage to partner with storage companies and truck rental agencies and so forth. And we just need to raise the awareness and educate so that people know how they can get involved. There's some people that don't want to get involved, but there are other people who may want to get involved. They just don't know how.
No, that's a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up, educate and inform, because I've worked with a lot of nonprofits and worked for and with a lot of nonprofits. And I personally use a lot of social media. and it's about educating and informing. And I know some of the criticism has been, oh, every time you're out helping, you're taking pictures, etc. Well, I'm not glorifying myself. I'm educating about this nonprofit and all the good that they're doing. And it used to be in the old days, you would write the newsletter to all of your supporters, right? But what are the best ways that, and anybody can answer this, what are the best ways that you found to get your message out and to educate and inform? Because bringing awareness is so important. And people read that and go, oh, it sparks their, oh, I should do this. So, Marc, I know you guys do a great job at that. What are you doing to educate and inform the community about what Shelter Movers is achieving and doing and how they can partner?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's very important to get the message out, and I hear you about it being sort of self-serving and self-congratulatory. I think our organization, and I dare say, I think Charity Storage as well. I think we're built on authenticity. I don't think the people we serve don't have time for us to be self ingratiating, and they have needs, and our job is to meet their needs, and so. We just need to be really honest and direct in terms of our work and our mission and our impact. And the work kind of speaks for itself. We do have a marketing team that helps us. We get interviews with media. So earned media is a big issue for us, particularly locally. It allows us to highlight the direct impact in the community to folks in that city. It also allows us to acknowledge our business partners who are also leading the way and showing good corporate social responsibility in that city. And so it's an honest way to promote our partners in a way that doesn't feel too advertising. It's really just us telling our story and our friends in the business community who share the vision. So earned media is obviously big. Yes, we do all the social media on all the platforms and we'll produce. But even then, it's more about praising and thanking our partners and acknowledging the courage of the people we're serving and the decisions they're making for them and their kids, more than about how great we are and how, we say frequently at Shelter Movers that the only hero in the story are the women who are making these decisions and changing the trajectory of their lives. That's heroism. The volunteers who do this great work at Shelter Movers are wonderful people, and I'm very proud to work with them. But they are not the heroes. They're the Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker of the story. She is Luke Skywalker. She is making the sacrifices for her and her kids, and it's actually our privilege to be with her on that journey if she uses Shelter Movers. It's quite the reverse than what other people might claim that they're doing for others. It's not really about what we're doing. It's about what she's doing for herself. And so we are very true to that message, and we believe that honestly. And I think that comes through in our talk about our work. And I think people hear that authenticity and they hear the love that we're trying to express for our community. And that takes care of the medium is almost irrelevant at that point. When the message is real and people believe it, then it could be over a coffee between friends. It could be in front of doing a major press event. It could be a politician or an elected official talking about our work, or it could be a business partner talking about it. The message is the same, and it's centered on her and her priorities, and we're just a vehicle for that. I don't know, Mario, you do a fair bit of. You guys are good for this too. This sort of advertising and messaging out.
Yeah, and Marc, I think it was just what you said is just so well said, because I think being authentic, right? I mean, when you're authentic about what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish, it comes across. And what you guys are doing, you're saving lives, right? You're facilitating, women to make a significant change. And, with Charity Storage, we're just a vehicle to help raise funds for you and others, other organizations like yourself, right? I mean, Cure Cancer Research, they're saving lives through research in different ways. And then, with the scholarship fund, we're educating people. So I think what this is all about is really educating, from my perspective, is the more we can educate people, the more that we can educate, whether it's politicians, whether it's self-storage operators, it doesn't matter who it is, on what we're doing, what our mission is. and showing them really how easy it is to help. I think, when you travel across the world, and I've been to Canada many times, I've been to the Dominican Republic, I've been to Mexico, been all over. And the one thing I've noticed about human beings, most people are great. Most people are good, solid people, and most people want to help. And I think it's really just educating them how to engage with us, spread the word, and show them really how easy it is that they can get involved. We've all had the opportunity. I think you nailed it, Marc, when you said we've all been blessed. Everyone on this particular podcast here, we've all been blessed. Or, we've got great families in a great industry. And so not only do we have a social responsibility to do good, but we have the perfect vehicle to do, in our industries, we can really make a difference in a pretty significant way the more we can get the word out.
So Mario, in the case of charity storage, tell us a little bit more about how wide the reach is of the organization. So how many storage facilities make units available for your organization? So
we
as far as
have,
I understand, you really just need one unit, right? That people can put donated items into at a facility. So there's, 40 or 50,000 storage facilities in the country. What's the penetration rate like?
Yeah, so there's currently about 60,000 facilities, and when you look at the 60,000 facilities, the average facility has 450 units. So there's over 20 million units out there. We have probably just 2% of the marketplace that's really participating. So that's why I got involved.
Yeah, I would encourage the four of us to continue to beat the drum on this. I think, in my, 4 or 5 years in this industry, there's been a relatively limited amount of discussion around, the charitable giving. Certainly there are some state organizations that are pretty active in the charitable giving. There's definitely some big donors involved. So it's not to say it's not taking place. It's just not front and center at a lot of events. There's oftentimes not any time on the agenda to talk about these things at different conferences and forums. But I can tell you, since we did our panel discussion a couple months ago at the Self Storage Association National Conference in Las Vegas, Denee and I have continued to receive many inquiries and conversations with different state associations about doing panel discussions and events with their state organization to kind of educate and inform. We've done magazine articles, things like that. So the word is getting out quite actually a lot faster than even I had expected. So I think as we move into next year, hopefully more associations will increase the awareness and visibility of some of these charitable giving opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely have seen a groundswell and seen more momentum. And I would just say, coming from a marketing background and also working for and with nonprofits, what I kind of learned throughout the process is I love Marc's heart posture about focusing on those that you're serving, but also educating about the problem set. So you really need both components. So when I was writing grants for nonprofits, I got in there and I'm very data and analytics driven. And so my grants were all about, hey, here's the data behind it. This is going to sell people. And we weren't getting very many grants approved. And so I went to a conference and learned that you also have to have the testimonies, the emotional appeal. People really want to hear how it's really impacting people's lives, and even bringing one scenario to mind and highlighting that. And if they're willing, if they're open to it. And I know, Jason, you had mentioned that Shelter Movers just had a gala, and they did have some testimonials, and it was very moving to you and very powerful. And you said, I wish you could have been there. And I do too. And I apologize, Marc. I was at the Texas Self Storage Association conference, which overlapped. But And back to educating the community, something I've learned from marketing is that you have to have a multi-pronged approach. So some people like to open email. So send the email, send the newsletter, do the social media. Press releases are great. They're free. Sometimes they'll be picked up by a national news media organization, which is amazing. And I also want to thank and give a shout out to the Self Storage Association at the national level. They did run a large article. Modern Storage Media has been super supportive. So we're grateful for the journalism outlets in our industry that have come along beside us and been helping to get the message out. So marketing is not a dirty word. Marketing is just about communicating, and there's multiple ways to communicate a message in a way that people will hear it and hopefully respond to it. And so we're choosing to implement and use several different marketing channels and communication channels to get the word out. And anyways, Marc, so any new developments that you can share with us or any new highlights?
Yeah, appreciate that. We did have our gala, you mentioned earlier, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, here in Toronto. For your U.S. listeners who aren't familiar with Toronto, it's a pretty big city. We're a little over 3 million people now. It's a little bit bigger than Chicago. And so to Jason's point, the storage industry is well established across Canada, certainly, and in Toronto in particular. And there are some generous, deep-pocketed folks who are part of the industry who showed up. We had a couple tables. Of course, Bluebird was one of our sponsors for the event and got to be among our more VIP guests. And there were other members of the storage industry who came together, who got their seats and sat and put their hands up when we put the call out to move more families at the end of the evening, and we're very generous. The event was at the Four Seasons Hotel, so certainly a more higher end experience. And we had about 300 people or so, and raised a little over 600,000 at the event, which is a lot of money for us, and that's going to move a lot of families. The vision for us is to give our business partners in all 10 cities a chance to participate in one of these events and get some visibility and network with other like-minded businesses that are also donating product or services, or consultants who advise us, legal services who advise us pro bono. And it's a bit of a chance for the business community to come together and talk about, why it's so important to give back. For us, I mean, Shelter Movers now is we're about a $6.5 million organization. So it's not, we're not a startup anymore. I would say we're certainly past that. It's been a few years now that we've been operating. But whether it's Shelter Movers or another charity that local storage facilities want to support, I think the relationship, as I mentioned earlier, really has to be simple and straightforward. And to Jason's earlier point, everyone's got a great story and everyone's trying to make their pitch to get support. And I think there's a lot of pressure on storage operators to find the organizational partners, the charitable partners who actually make sense for their industry. Obviously ours is a pretty natural fit. As you heard, it's a component of the service we offer to survivors. So we can't operate without storage. Otherwise we have no place to put her stuff after we get her out. But that's an easier link, but for other charities it might be more difficult. And that requires just a creative conversation, about what the link is, and maybe it's just generally doing good. But I think we have a bit of an advantage, frankly, compared to other charities, because we're so naturally aligned with this industry, and with the moving industry as well, or vehicle rental industry. And in the charitable sector, that's just our niche. So we kind of get to own a little bit of that corner of the business community without a whole lot of so-called competition, because other ones are just not quite as easily aligned. And so storage folks in their community, I think would encourage them to look for industries that align very naturally. And then it just everything else falls into place because the messaging is easier, the messaging aligns, the everyone understands what everyone's doing. The donors and the customers of the business naturally see the link as well. They don't need that explained to them as well either. So I would think in the marketing and in the messaging of what storage companies want to do, find that local obvious, the aha moment where, oh yeah, obviously we should be aligned with shelter movers or equivalent because of the link. And for us to be able to have the gala and to acknowledge those partners is just another way that we can show love back and pat people on the back and thank them and let them know that what they're doing is making a real difference, and it's not just a transaction, right? It's real relationships, and it's really changing lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Great job, too. That's exciting. I was just thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if we all did such a wonderful job that we actually worked you out of a job because we brought so much healing to the world and to the communities that you were no longer needed, right?
I'd love to be out of a job. That's the ultimate retirement plan. Is that there's no more violence against women, and no one's giving us calls. Our phones are quiet, and no one calls us. To put it in perspective, the dose of reality is that so last year we moved 1,643 families, and I'm very proud of that. I'm really pleased with their impact. But in Canada, there were 140,000 phone calls to police relating to abuse. And so even if, I want to get to 10% of those 140,000, if we're moving 14,000 families, that's a 10, to give you your listeners an idea of the growth we need. We're not looking to double or triple in size. If we're going to take the problem seriously, it's a 10x growth. And that's just to get to 10% of the problem. But if we can do that, and I don't just think about the women we're serving, I'm thinking about their kids, particularly their sons, who, we started this organization 8 years ago. And one of our first moves was with a client whose son was 10 years old. And I could tell by the way he was looking at all of us, taking direction from her and really deferring to her authority. I don't think that boy saw a lot of that his mom was in charge and that we were respecting her power. And so we turned 8 years old. This organization is just a little while ago. And I think about that boy because that boy's going to turn 18 this year. And I don't know where he is. I don't know what his future holds for him, but I'd like to think that night that we got him and his mom out of the house, and he saw who she really was, which was a powerful, loving mother taking charge of her life, that maybe he didn't become the uncle or father or whoever was in the house who was abusing them. Maybe his trajectory is different. Maybe he's interacting with women differently. Maybe he was able to heal from whatever trauma he had, and maybe his life is a little bit different now. And I think about him, and I think about 1,643 other kids. It's not a generation of kids, I get it, but it is a cohort of kids who may now have broken the cycle of violence or victimhood in themselves. And with the help of Bluebird and other companies, that's a whole cohort of humans who are going to go on to probably do something better with their life. And so that I remind myself of that, and I think about that kid a lot, and I want to share that story with your listeners because I think that's what we're trying to do here, and that's the scale we're trying to operate at, and that's why our asks have to be big because, and I don't even think they're that big, frankly, but in the context of our organization, a $50,000 donation is a major gift. And a $200 gift is major if that's what the donor has capacity to give, whether it's financial or storage units, 1 unit or 20 units. All of it is going towards this bigger goal.
I love that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways, Denee, for our listeners to get involved. Certainly, in almost any area of the U.S., you can donate a unit, even as small as 40 or 50 square feet, and raise money for charity storage. In Canada, as I've learned more about shelter movers, it costs around $250 to move a family because they've got other volunteers and in-kind donations, which brings that cost down quite low. So think about that. You can save a family for $250. So of course it's great to get $1 million donations. And some people say, hey, I don't have a lot of money. How can I actually help? Well, if you can raise or donate $250, that pays pays for a move. As far as in-kind donations, with shelter movers now moving into their 10th city, certainly wherever Bluebird operates, we will give as much space as we can, and typically can meet their needs. They're always going to need a lot of space in Toronto. In particular, we don't have any facilities right now in Ottawa or Vancouver, so those are areas where they definitely need space. So if you're listening and you're in the storage business, or you're in a truck rental agency, which is really where we need a lot more participation. There's some larger truck rental agencies that need to step up. They're doing, frankly, very little, some of them, to help, and they could provide a free rental to just for a day, right, to help lower the cost, which allows shelter movers to move more families. So truck rental agencies, and then certainly any storage operators. Even if you're a smaller operator but you have 1 or 2 units, you can lend out for a year at a time in Vancouver or Ottawa. I think those are some of the areas I know that shelter movers is constantly in need of space. And I feel a little bit helpless because I don't have any sites there. Otherwise I would just give the space. But other areas we've given a lot of space, like Calgary, Toronto, Halifax, Montreal. The list goes on. But there's other operators, large and small, that can help, and it would make things a lot easier if larger operators would help. Sometimes they tend to be a bit more hesitant, or they've committed to other causes, or in some cases, frankly, they're just excessively bureaucratic and can't get any decisions made. But we definitely could use more awareness and more participation, and I'm sure that Marc and Mario would welcome a call from any of you listening on how you can get involved. It's I found it to be quite easy, and also, like Denee said, it's impactful to our staff. Just being able to play a small part in helping those survivors, start their life over with all their belongings. It's a lot more meaningful. You're in the real estate business, but you're storing people's stuff and you're helping with them on their journey. And there's a lot more meaning to it if you can find a way to help people and your community through real estate. At least that's what I found.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that, Jason. So I do know at Sunbird Storage and at Bluebird Self Storage, we have Bluebird Storage Cares and Sunbird Storage Cares. So Jason, can you just quickly touch upon the other nonprofits that we support?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important today. Obviously, we're shining a light on charity storage and shelter movers, but there are, countless ways to help your community. I would encourage you to learn about them and to help, however you feel it's a good fit. In our case, specifically in Canada, we donate on a semi-permanent basis, at least, I think at last count, around 165 units for something on the order of 17 or 18,000 square feet. So we've got those units. A big chunk of them go to shelter movers, but there's, I believe, 65 or more nonprofits across our 25 locations. So each location typically has, up to a handful of different charities, whether they're different community organizations, women's organizations, youth organizations, sports organizations. We want to see these organizations grow and make the community more vibrant. So if we can reduce their costs related to their storage budget expenses, then they can redeploy those same funds, which is typically a few $1,000s a year, into wider programming, and make it more inclusive in the community. So, we don't really take the approach that we're kind of stingy with it, or that we don't want to give away units. We actually, I view a measure of success as the more units we can give away, the more of an impact we're making. So I'd actually like to see us give away thousands of units, because that just means the impact and the reach is greater.
That's great. Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. So we're winding down the show. Any last closing remarks? I will say that we will put all of your contact information, Mario and Marc. Thank you for being on here. We'll put your contact information in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And we will, of course, do a lot of social media to get the word out. But any closing remarks that you want to make first, Marc, and then I'll let Mario go ahead and go.
No, I just want to thank you for having us. I think you're really showing the way for the industry, and this is a really important episode. I think Jason, as I said, Jason and Bluebird are modeling the behavior we're hoping to see across the industry, and hopefully we're showing that we can have real impact when nonprofits and businesses work well together. So thanks for hosting.
Well, you're welcome. And I'm proud of you too as a dad. And I know Jason is as well. Your children are watching you. You're modeling behavior that will go into the future, the next generation, right? We want them to do even more than what we've been able to accomplish in terms of helping and healing and just being a blessing to this world. So Jason, last closing remarks. And thank you for your leadership, by the way, in all of this.
Thanks, Denee. I know that behind the scenes, you've been working hard. You're obviously quite involved in the nonprofits and in your community, but also I know you've been making a lot of outreach calls to try and get topics like this regarding social responsibility onto the agenda at future conferences, even at a national level, as well as replying to a number of journalists with respect to articles that they can write to kind of raise the visibility and awareness. So thank you for carrying the torch. I think the four of us together can continue to beat this drum, and we're already starting to make an impact. I can already see it and feel it, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work together on different ways to involve more and more folks from within the industry into some of these great causes.
Great. Thank you, Jason. And we just want to thank our audience for listening. Please reach out. We want to partner with you. We would love to be able to link arms with you, especially on this topic. And so please reach out to us, get involved. There's something that you can do. There's some measure that you can give. And I know that everyone in this world is born with an innate need for purpose. So this is a great way to have some purpose in life and do some good. So we want to thank you for joining us, listening in. Please like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please share this out. We are here for you. We love our self-storage industry and our self-storage folks. And thank you all for being on the panel today, and appreciate all that you are doing to make this world a better place for our children and for the future. So thank you so much.
That concludes this episode of the Storage Stories podcast. Be sure to share and subscribe as we continue to tackle self-storage news, trends, education, and personal experiences from the competitive world of self-storage.